What's going on, everyone? Welcome to our June 7th, 2024 edition of This Week in Crypto. I'm your host, Brian. I will be flying solo today, but we've got plenty that we will be going over regarding the state of the crypto markets as we are now nearing about 3 months past when we saw that March 14th all-time high. Next week, in fact, will be that 3-month anniversary, but we may already be at a new all-time high by the time we get there. Somewhat quietly, if you can believe it, Bitcoin has climbed its way back to 71.5K at the time of this recording, and appears to be inching forward in ways that the market is not anticipating, which is, of course, the usual, because markets, as we've expressed many times, move the direction of the crowd's least expectation at all times. And the crowd has been kind of leaning toward the profit take side of things as of late, while Bitcoin has kind of refused to go away. And you may not really see it from this perspective, but Bitcoin has had a pretty legitimate level of dominance over the rest of the assets in crypto. Of course, there are always plenty of exceptions. You can see Notcoin in particular almost doubling over the past week, but most altcoins have kind of lagged behind. And, we even saw another temporary dip in Bitcoin followed by a big surge without altcoins following. And that's kind of been the pattern, where there's a flush of, 3 to 5% of market caps on the altcoin side, and then Bitcoin sneaks back up on its own. And this is why there are a lot of Bitcoin maxis out there. There are, on any given week, plenty of altcoins that have these big runs. But if you want to just consistently edge ahead of most other altcoins and any other asset in crypto, then sticking in Bitcoin does seem to have its merits, especially here in 2024. And, we've seen meme coins go a little bit quiet as of late. There hasn't been a particular sector from what I've seen that has really, decoupled and gone its own direction ahead of the pack over the past week. But there are, of course, plenty of individual assets, and we'll go over some today, not just ones that we're keeping our eye on, but of course, ones that we can address based on your questions that you may want a little more analysis on to help you navigate. So with that said, let's look at a few of the actual standout coins and, of course, the social volume as well. BNB actually had a big early part of the week, which is why its social volume is plus 53% compared to the week prior. We can see Ethereum has really dropped off as the hype related to the Ethereum ETF has started to die down. It's certainly still on people's minds, but the euphoria of that is a little bit back down to earth right now. Bitcoin, as we can see, up 3.3% in price. Ethereum down 1%. BNB, as mentioned, up 18%. One of the highlights among the top 25 to 30 assets out there. Toncoin up another 15%. Cardano up 5%. Caspa up 25%, Stacks up 24%, Monero, which a lot of people have written off, up 15.5% itself. Floki, one of the few meme coins that actually did perform quite strong over the past week, up 17%, Injective 15%, Sui 11%, and then here's Notcoin leading the pack among the top 100 market cap assets, up to 84%. Jasmy up nearly 40%, and Ondo, one that's been getting quite a bit of discussion, by the way, up 10% itself. We can also go over to our watch lists page here. And this usually takes maybe 5 to 10 seconds to load, but you can see that, every sector is up over the past week based on how we've broken it down. Going down here, there are, we see meme coins, at least according to my watch list, down just below 0%, and real world assets actually down 1%. But, gaming did pretty well, up 6.3. Social, they kind of led the way, up 11.6% in the past week. BSC and Binance Chain, powered by Binance Coin itself, up 7.2%. Layer 1's 4.6%. And NFTs up 6.6%. Surprising to me that NFTs are still having this kind of momentum right now. So if you're looking for, potential profit redistributions that may happen as a result of Bitcoin being able to continue climbing, then pay attention to these different sectors, and within them, you might find some hidden gems when you look at, their development activity, their on-chain analytics right now, all sorts of things that might be hinting of some breakouts that may be coming up. Overall, the market cap of all assets that we track, a little over 3,000. It's gained about 4% in total. Trading volume up 4.3% in total. And with that, why don't we move over to one of the charts I wanted to point out, and that is Bitcoin's overall price versus other sectors right now. You can see that it's still somewhat aligned with the S&P. They're fluctuating quite tightly. This isn't the worst thing in the world, but remember that bull markets tend to come when there is very little or no reliance on equities markets. So yes, they've both been climbing together, which is great, but we haven't quite seen that decoupling from the S&P 500 that we would be rooting for. If we zoom out a bit to the last 6 months, yeah, you can see just how tightly they've been connected, especially since that all-time high hit. And, we kind of had that temporary retrace, and then they really locked in right here around the end of March, going down, going up, and kind of staying very wound together. Interestingly, gold has started to at least retrace pretty significantly. It's back down to around its lowest level in about a month. But of course, it still had one heck of a run, just like crypto and the S&P. It's been kind of a party for all three of these sectors together. You can also see the funding rate, which I like to include on this chart. And it's indicating there really is not much, major skew toward longs or shorts right now. It's right around flat. There was a little bit on the longing side on June 5th. This was Wednesday. So I don't anticipate that there's major, FOMO or FUD at play right now. And that's kind of the story of this week. Bitcoin being able to climb back up to essentially a 2-month high. The last time we really got to 71.9K, which it did a few hours ago, was back on April 8th. So it's actually been quite a while. And, from a percentage standpoint, going back roughly, I guess the all-time high technically, if we zoom in here, so it got up to 73.6. If we go back 3 months, see if I can get it precisely on that all-time high. We're going to call that close enough while it's zoomed out. But you can see it's only down. Bitcoin's price is only down 2.8% from its all-time high from March 14th. That's how close we are. It may not seem like it because there have been plenty of distractions, politics coming into play, stories coming in every day like we normally see, but there hasn't been as much interest in Bitcoin despite its dominance over the markets and the fact that it's within 3% of its all-time high now. So, pay close attention. We could very well creep up above it in the next week, and all of a sudden everyone's going to be talking about Bitcoin again because it's all over, MSNBC and these different TV stations and media outlets that start talking about Bitcoin's all-time high again. And that's kind of the name of the game. You can see from our trending words, GameStop is actually back at the top of the list in terms of the most rapidly rising topics related to the normal amount of discussion related to these topics. So GME is trending in the given text due to discussions related to the stock market, particularly focusing on the company GameStop. Text mentioned various aspects such as market dynamics, short selling, stock valuation, and investor sentiments. The discussions revolve around the ongoing saga involving GameStop and the community's involvement in its market movements. Experienced a surge as Wall Street contended with the GameStop army, led by Roaring Kitty, where, unless you're living in a cave, you've probably heard that name a bit by now. And in terms of what's going on right now, let me just see if there's, we'll just do it this way. GME stock. Yeah, so it's trending all of a sudden because it's seeing its first major dip in close to a month. If you go back 6 months, you can see the big rise. This is when everyone kind of celebrated Roaring Kitty's return right around mid-May. And then we had this big drop and everything went quiet. But then over the past, I guess through the beginning of June, this past week, we suddenly saw a big rise again where it went from $23 back up to $46. That's a double, which in crypto, many of us are used to by now, but in the stock market, that's a big deal. So it doubled over the first, week or so, 6 days or so of June. And then today it's seeing a correction once again. So volatility toward GameStop is quite high. And this, of course, as we've seen, overlaps a lot toward meme coins and what's going on in the crypto world, because we've seen time and time again, GameStop and even AMC surges have resulted in profit redistribution into other speculative assets that kind of bleed into the crypto world, Bonk, WIF, Dogecoin, and Shiba Inu to an extent, all sorts of different assets that have benefited from the GameStop craze and Roaring Kitty's presence and things like that. So keep an eye on whether it does get a second or third wave. If you're a TA trader, right, you can see quite clearly it got toward a little above $48 back in mid-May. And this time around, its high was at 46. So it experienced a lower high. Obviously, it's no secret that GameStop is kind of sentiment driven at the moment. So many people saw it approaching that previous high in mid-May and decided to take profit right before it. And that kind of created this self-fulfilling prophecy where it did correct right beforehand. But if it does go above 48, that's where, the resistance level, as most call it, is breached. And then it could be off to the races like it's 2021 all over again. So keep that in mind and understand that even though we're looking at a stock right now, a real company, as opposed to anything in crypto, it has a lot to do with how crypto ends up performing itself. Okay. What else here? We have IST trending due to its frequent appearance in discussions related to stock trading, market analysis, investment strategies. I didn't research this before this call, but I'm curious what's going on with IST right now. Doesn't look like it's done anything too special right now. If you're in chat, I would actually love to know the context, because it is, up at the #2 spot for trending words right now. And I would love to find out more. I'm noticing that the connected words have a lot to do with German words, if I'm correct in guessing the language, but this may have something to do with a European stock exchange word, or I'm off completely. I don't want to be incorrect on that. The word die, this appears to have...
The words are German indeed.
Yeah, I figured as much. But if you know anything about IST, let me know. This may actually not even be a stock, and it has to do with the actual German word East. We have die here because of the fact that a lot of people are upset about the stock manipulation going on, and GameStop correcting has, I guarantee, a lot to do with that. Und, yeah, clearly we're seeing a trend here. Und nicht den, I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation, auf and ouch, or ach, whatever it is. There's a lot of German words that are being spammed like crazy right now. We'll shift over to trending coins, where we can see that Bitcoin is actually back in the forefront. I guarantee that part of this is due to the price climb. And then there's also a lot of discussion about the transactions going on in El Salvador, which has prominently been known as one of the pioneer countries that has adopted Bitcoin, probably starting around, I want to say 2019 or 18 is when I first started hearing about their association with Bitcoin. So they have given Bitcoin a bit of a boost. In terms of the bearish summary, the main reasons to be bearish on the Bitcoin project based on text provided include concerns about the environmental impact of mining Bitcoin. So there's been a bit of discussion related to mining and its damage toward the environment over the past week. Predictions of a significant price drop. That's, in my opinion, actually a bullish argument. If there's a lot of predictions toward the price dropping, it increases the likelihood of the price not dropping. Additionally, the overall sentiment in the text is negative, with mentions of Bitcoin looking weak and trading being halted. Investors should stay alert and carefully analyze the charts before making any decisions related to Bitcoin. On the bullish end, as a financial analyst analyzing social media trends in the crypto and finance areas, the recent bullish sentiments surrounding Bitcoin are evident. Sentiments overwhelmingly positive, with mentions of Bitcoin fixing financial issues. Probably not true. In my opinion, there's actually a healthy mix of people profit taking right now, expecting prices to go down. But of course, there are still plenty that are not ignoring, the fact that we're within 3% of that all-time high. No matter how much it appears like people are sleeping under a rock, there are always people that are, on high alert when the top asset in crypto is suddenly on the verge of hitting another all-time high again. So there are predictions of Bitcoin reaching 150K. That would, of course, be a little more than double where we're at right now. And the belief that Bitcoin's an unstoppable phenomenon. We've heard that many times. And over the history of Bitcoin, they've been more or less correct. There's also excitement about the potential for Bitcoin to break new all-time highs, as I just mentioned. Additionally, discussions about Bitcoin mining practices, institutional interest, and the potential for Bitcoin to reach mainstream adoption. So a little extra interest in the mining related to Bitcoin as of late, but yeah, overall, this is going to be the topic of conversation until Bitcoin either accomplishes its mission of reaching a new all-time high or drops back and disappoints traders once again, who are salivating for further and further rises, like we've seen pretty much since October, even though the technical all-time high was in March. All right, below that, we've got Waves, which is continuing to be talked about because of the fact that it's being delisted on Binance and Bitvavo. I don't think Bitvavo is really relevant relative to Binance, of course, but they're being delisted on both. There's also an AMA session with the ecosystem founder, Sasha, for more info. Toncoin continues to be one of the big stories of 2024. If you haven't paid attention to Toncoin's ascension, which I'll show really quick right here, yeah, you probably have missed one of the biggest booming altcoins. And much of this might be, due to all of the talk of, the Bonk and Whiff and some of these other meme coins that have gotten so much attention in crypto. But you can see pretty clearly, even just since March here, going since the past 3 months, Toncoin is now up 176%. And that's a lot more than most assets out there, folks. So Toncoin is undoubtedly being talked about due to its price performance. And it's also associated with a new in-app currency known as STARS, which can be exchanged for Toncoin, anticipation of a breakout in Toncoin's price, along with discussions on its whale activity and future prospects. It's also being talked about a lot with DTX and Solana, interestingly, to determine the potential winner in the altcoin market. I often see people talk about the battles between altcoins, and large ecosystems in terms of there being a winner and loser. Just keep in mind that these are short-term battles, right? If someone says there's an ultimate winner between, Solana and Toncoin, I see Ethereum looped into that a lot. They're often talking about just the next week or two, and very new traders who think that the next week or two is life or death. But in crypto, of course, it's 24/7, and you may see a story where one coin is just the clear breakout star for an entire week or entire month even. And the next thing you know, it's not being talked about anymore. And the other network or ecosystem or asset is suddenly breaking out. So don't fall into the trap of the permanent potential winners of the crypto space in terms of altcoins over a certain period of time. It ends up kind of distorting your understanding of long-term versus short-term. And I can get into that on another video at some time. PRCL, which I've rarely seen talked about, but the word parcel is trending due to concerns and inquiries about the distribution of parcel rewards. And the community is eagerly awaiting the distribution. I don't know if this is technically an airdrop that is having a delay on its reward payments or something similar to that, but it sounds like there's some delays going on about rewards that some traders have expected. So you can read the bullish and bearish arguments there. I won't do the AI summaries for the rest of these, but going down the list, pay special attention to Injective, Cardano, Litecoin, Carrot, which is a very small known asset, but is very bullish according to the crowd right now. Jasmy, which has had some serious whale transaction spikes over the past week. I'll look at that in a moment. And Filecoin, which has not been in the news in a while, but you can see it just had a huge breakout going to nearly above 660 at this time, after being at about 570 a week ago. So yeah, almost all of these assets appear to be related to price breakouts, which is nothing new. The exception, of course, is Waves here, which is really dropping fast due to its delisting. And sometimes it can be nothing more than just availability. And obviously, when the largest exchange makes it no longer available, market caps take a hit pretty quickly. Yeah, why don't we look at that Jasmy spike in whale transactions, which also included Cardano and Shiba Inu. So we posted this, what was this, yesterday? Yeah, this was, yesterday. This was something we noticed in the whale activity for these three particular altcoins, Cardano, Shiba Inu, and Jasmy, all saw major price surges following the sudden rise in whale interest. So this can, of course, mean two things. If prices are already spiking, then you may see a bit of a correction. If prices are kind of moving down or staying flat, and then you see whale transaction spikes, this is often a great signal that indicates that we are on the verge of a breakout. So you can see the lines here. I know it's a little noisy, but I personally actually like these kinds of charts where everything's all on one page. The orange line here is Jasmy's price, and of course the bars are its whale transactions, any transaction over $100,000 on a daily basis. Actually, in this case, it was an 8-hour basis. Either way, you can see the clear whale transaction spike right after Jasmy had this big spike in price. And then right after that, the price dropped. Same thing here. You had a big price run up, then a big whale transaction spike, and prices dropped once again. That is not the same as Shiba Inu and Cardano, which are way down here, and we're actually kind of slipping at the time that we suddenly started to see these green and blue bars here, indicating their whale transaction spikes. And since they were moving down at the time that whale transactions happened, we suddenly see Bitcoin climb. And Shiba Inu, at least to a small extent, has climbed ever since. So this is the kind of stuff I love. It's like a clear signal that for one, whales really control these altcoins all the time, whether we like it or not. And instead of just shrugging and saying, all right, well, I guess it's out of my control, no point in monitoring this asset or trying to time the jumps, you can say, how about I actually monitor what the whales are doing and follow along with what their trades are? And we've got clear alpha right here showing you the times in which they're suddenly engaging with these altcoins. And you can set alerts, in case you haven't explored all aspects of Santiment yet. If you go to my alerts here, you can very easily go to something like create alert, click on a certain asset. Let's say I want a whale spike alert for anytime whales are engaging in Ethereum, and I'll just type in whale transactions, and boom, I can just click alert me when there's a big spike in $1 million plus whale transactions or $100,000 plus whale transactions. I'd probably recommend the latter, by the way. It's you get more of a sample size because there's obviously a lot more 100K plus than $1 million plus transactions on any given day for any asset. But that lets you basically get informed the moment that there's a big spike, and it gets sent straight to your Telegram. You can have email alerts, and it's a game changer so that you can be the first to be informed when there are sudden spikes like the one I just mentioned, like right here. All right, besides that, we mentioned that there were a few sectors like the social sector, BSC and Binance Chain sector, and the gaming sector that we're seeing mini breakouts. I also wanted to mention this, supply and profit. This is increasingly becoming a metric that I like for the long term, certainly not a short-term metric, and I would not recommend, analyzing it on a daily or weekly trading type of strategy basis. But in terms of the long term, looking at the fact that Bitcoin has 98.3% of its coins in profit, this would actually be a bit of a warning signal, right? We're very close to an all-time high. So of course there's going to be the vast majority of coins that were minted being at a higher price now than the time in which they were minted. But generally we see higher likelihoods of jumps when, that percentage is at least below 90, preferably even below 80. And on the short term, that may not matter, but you want to be in coins that may not have had as much success in, their coins being in profit compared to when they were minted. And Cardano here's a notable one. Someone even asked about Matic, and I looked at that, and it's down in the low 30s right now. A lot of that is due to the timing in which, these coins were first introduced. In the case of Matic, which is not pictured here, but I bring it up because someone asked about it after we posted about it yesterday. It was introduced in mid-2019, at least the public trading data is first available there. And because of that, mid-2019, we were in the midst of a or a bear market still. So a lot of these coins were introduced and immediately started getting devalued because everything was being pushed down at that time. So there's a little bit of noise when it comes to this metric, but I still think there's some promise. And I'm going to do some more analysis as the year goes on. And you might see some videos pop up about the supply and profit and comparing assets to find some hidden gems that may not have very many coins in profit, but have, dedicated development teams that are trying to innovate and improve their projects. Okay. Let's see what I can look at next. I certainly want to look at the development dashboard that many of you may have just seen. Let me take a quick look at the article here that one of our awesome staff members just put out on our Medium channel yesterday. I'm going to copy the link. Sorry if you see a black screen for just a moment. All right, so We're super excited. We just introduced a new ecosystem development activity dashboard, and it shows how many software development events are created on various blockchains and their associated dApps. Many of you are, I'm sure, already aware of the fact that we have our development activity leaderboard, which I just posted about a few days ago. Right down, if I can find it. Oh yeah, I definitely want to show this as well. Where did I post about it? Was it Monday? I think it may have been Monday. Here we go. So this is our regular development activity list that we normally talk about, where you can see the top 10 development activity leaders here, with Hedera, Optimism, and Cardano currently being the assets with the most dedicated teams that are putting out notable innovations and improvements on their assets on any given day. So what this new dashboard does, which I'll open now, is it sorts by ecosystem instead. So all of Ethereum versus all BNB chain coins versus all Polygon, Cosmos, and Arbitrum. And these are currently the leaders in terms of development activity event contributors on a daily basis. You can see events here and event contributors here. Ethereum, way out in the lead right now with a little over 6,000. BNB chain, a little less than half at 2,600. And then they get quite close here with Polygon, Cosmos, and Arbitrum right below. But this is really cool, and it's updated every day. You can look down and see, which ones are rising and falling. There are 75 different ecosystems you can look through in total. Let's even add on and just go all the way down to the bottom. You can see Bitcoin, interestingly, is at 24. And if we go all the way to the very end, we've got Mina, Hathor, and Kujira, Sui, Immutable. And these are due to the fact that we don't really see any current development activity events on them. But you get the idea. The idea is you want to, or you can now track the ecosystems for these different ecosystems and see which ones are truly getting the most work being done on them. And we've seen many times with individual assets, when teams are innovating and improving those assets, they tend to rise to the top. And it's not coincidental, that most of these coins that are in the leaderboard for the development activity are in the top 50 or so in terms of market cap rank, right? Taking a live look right now, which, by the way, Hedera is now over 600 per day. They're just churning along right now. They're currently the 30th ranked asset. That certainly was not the case a year ago, but because they're improving and innovating so much, clearly that's having an impact on them being able to climb up the altcoin leaderboard here in terms of just overall market cap. And that's the case with overall ecosystems too. And clearly Ethereum assets in general are benefiting from the fact that their ecosystem is seeing the most notable development on a daily basis. So I'd keep that in mind, and you can bookmark this, learn more about it at any given time. Let's go back to the article so I can give you a little more info. So the article reads, what's dev activity and why is it exactly important? And we state, when exploring the crypto space, whether as a user, trader, investor, or other role, it's important to pay attention to the size of the community behind each project. It's even more critical to know how many community members are developers, and more importantly, how many of those developers are active contributors. This can be assessed by observing their activity on GitHub. The more dev activity a project has, the greater the chances are that their product will grow and be adopted by the users. And it can be monitored in different ways. So we talk about the different ways in terms of development activity events. And we give several examples of this with Bitcoin Gold and Bitcoin being compared here. We talk about why there are pre-selected events and not just all of them. And then we differentiate development activity versus GitHub activity. And I want to emphasize this. The pure development activity takes into account only selected types of events in public GitHub repositories, which excludes commits, forks, comments, project management events, etc. GitHub activity, on the other hand, takes into account all types of events in public GitHub repositories. And one key distinction between dev activity and GitHub activity is the fact that dev activity allows for a fairer comparison between different organizations. And this is because some events excluded in dev activity are related to issues and issue comments. As a result, this metric avoids giving an unjust advantage to projects that use GitHub for issue tracking and community engagements compared to projects that rely on external tools for such purposes. So I recommend you check out the rest of the article. I'm certainly not going to read and narrate the whole thing, but it was written by our lovely staff member, Evgeny, who some of you may have spoken to. And it's a wonderful article that really goes deep into our methodology. One other thing I want to mention here, if I go back to our latest insights, many of you may have seen our exciting announcement about 2 new key metrics that we just introduced. So we've added 2 metrics that essentially track the dollar amounts held by whales. We've got whale USD balance that is not on exchanges, and whale USD balance overall. We've done much whale analysis over the past couple of years, showing how many coins whales are holding at any given time. And of course, one of the number one questions that always comes up is, which of these whales are actually on exchanges versus not on exchanges? Well, we now have the answer. We can actually look at any given asset, and they all have their own criteria based on a methodology that I won't go into the math on, but we use an objective kind of parabolic curve to indicate how much a coin holder must hold in order to be deemed a whale. And if they qualify, obviously there's a much higher qualification for Bitcoin and Ethereum whales because they're the largest coins by market cap. But if they qualify, then we look at whether they're on exchange or not on exchanges, and can actually now measure how many dollars, based on the current price of that asset, those whales now hold. And generally speaking, the higher up this line goes, the better sign it is. Because if a coin is going up in value, it can be implied that whales want to keep their holdings at a steady amount of dollars, right? And if they don't, if they just let it ride even while the price is going up, that means they're really confident that the coin has the ability to continue climbing, and they're basically ignoring their option to take profit and keep their if they were at $50 million and want to keep it at 50 million, and suddenly it's at 100 million and they're just letting it go, that's a great sign that they have confidence in a continued rise and they don't want to push down the price. So right now, looking at Ethereum, for example, clearly we are seeing a lot of confidence from those whales because they're not really taking profit in any visible way right now. And especially being on non-exchanges, this purple line is a fantastic indication that Ethereum is not only moving in the right direction price-wise, but also, there's more accumulation than there is dumping right now from the non-exchange holders out there. We also made a template so that you can chime in and actually look at any asset, assuming it's an ERC20, by the way. This is a metric that is exclusive to ERC20s at the time, but we may be adding more in the near future. Not sure why it's opening this. I had just made a template for it. Hold on. Hopefully my template didn't get overlapped. Well, actually, it might just be easier to recreate it. Give me one moment. So if we go to Ethereum and we type in whale, we've got whale USD balance not on exchanges. I'm going to add that, and then whale USD overall. Let's change this to candles. And now we've got the last 6 months of non-exchange whales and overall whale holdings. Of course, they're on their own axis. If I pinned their axis, you can see that the yellow line is going to be much higher than the red because they're now actually on the same perspective toward one another. But you get the idea. They've been clearly moving up in dollar amount. And yes, a lot of this is due to the fact that Ethereum has just gone up in price, but it's also a sign that the whales are being patient and they're not just taking profit and scraping off their profits to potentially foreshadow that a price drop may be coming. In my opinion, this is most important when prices are flat, because that's when you truly see whether their dollar values are moving up or down, and whether non-exchange whales are taking profit or accumulating during those times without the noise of prices going way up. So if we looked at like a smaller asset, let's just zoom down here and pick an Ethereum-based asset. I think Maker would be a cool one. So Maker, interestingly, had this big drop in whale USD balance on May 8th. Some of you Maker experts who are watching this may know exactly why, or it is a mystery. Regardless, ever since that drop, yeah, we had this one spike here, but ever since that drop, the price has actually been going down pretty considerably. I wouldn't be surprised if it had a lot to do with this huge drop that occurred here on May 8th and 9th that resulted in about 32% of US dollar value going down. So yeah, it does look like there is quite a bit of concern, according to this metric, for Maker right now. Let's take a look at another one. Moving down even further, how about we look at Gala as an ERC20? I haven't looked at Gala in quite some time. Weird. Something weird's going on. Let's just look at the last month. Wonder why the price is only going back to May. We've definitely had plenty of Gala data over the past few years. We'll just skip that and look at Curve instead. All right, that's better. Let's take off the pin axis so it's a little easier to see. Yeah, so Curve also had a huge plummet on May 8th and 9th. I've actually noticed a trend of this. There was a huge drop in whale USD balance right around the second week of May for so many different altcoins. But you get the idea, especially on the non-exchange end, which arguably has more alpha than just the overall end. You can see there was a little bit of a climb here, but it started to dip just over the past few days. You get the idea. Explore this with any of your favorite ERC20s, and you might find some great alpha that will allow you to see a potential ascension in price or a dump in price before everyone else, because of the fact that there's some whale activity going on behind the curtains of that particular asset. All right, so we've gone over a few of our recent updates for crypto. Now let's take a look at some of Bitcoin's key metrics really quick, and then take a couple questions. So one of the things I'm keeping an eye on is the fact that the 10 plus Bitcoin wallets have actually decreased their amount of coins held over the past week and a half or so now. It's not a very big drop, but you need to keep in mind the fact that this line is almost always just going up. And when it's actually going down, that means there is a little bit of concerning dumping going on. A lot of these are miners that are constantly getting new Bitcoin in their wallets. And the fact that their net difference is actually moving slightly down for once is a bit of a concern that, this price ascension is happening in spite of the whale behavior, not in tandem with the whale behavior. If we go back a little further and we look at a few of the previous times when this line was actually moving down, we see a clear time happening between February 2022 and January of 2023. This 11-month stretch saw a decrease of 344,000 net Bitcoin during this time. And unsurprisingly, Bitcoin's price did move down during that stretch. So yeah, I wouldn't panic just yet. This is a very, very minor drop compared to what happened here. But note that when this line is actually moving down and not up, that's when prices get a little more shaky and unstable. But we're at the very early stages of that, if it is foreshadowing that it's going to continue moving down. You can also see that the specific 10 to 10K plus tier, or 10 to 10K tier, is moving down right now. And a lot of that was due to the Mt. Gox trustee moving billions of dollars of assets just last week. So take that with a grain of salt. That's actually why I'm looking at just 10 or more rather than specifically 10 to 10K, because I think that's a little more useful and doesn't get skewed by the Mt. Gox move, where they consolidated a bunch of wallets. And then while we're here, you can also see that Tether is continuing to move down. Yes, there's been a little tiny bit of a climb over the last couple of weeks, but not much. USD coin does look a little better. The whales have been accumulating a little more dry powder since going all the way back to mid-March now. But we'd like to see a little more accumulation from stablecoin whales as a sign that more buying power is being injected into crypto right now. Looking at crowd sentiment right now. Yeah, you can see there's a little bit of a jump in discussion related to Bitcoin right now, but nothing outside of the norm. Weighted sentiment is actually still, we got to make this daily. Oh yeah, because that's the latest full day, so it makes sense. There is still, like I said, a little bit of ignoring of the price right now, and that's why you're seeing kind of negative sentiment creeping in here still, even though it's the top trending asset. As we saw in the social dashboard, a lot of this is related to people deciding whether this is the time to profit take right before the all-time high, because we've seen so many times where Bitcoin got to that 70K to 71K range and then retraced quickly. So people are like, I've learned my lesson. I don't want that to happen to me again. I'm going to take profit now. And that's why you're seeing a little bit of a negative sentiment, despite the fact that Bitcoin's prices looked pretty good, up a little over 3% in the past week. Moving over to our main template really quick, and then we'll start taking a few questions. Go back 6 months. Yeah, so trading volume has kind of been in neutral. Transaction volume continues to show a descend ever since late February. Gotcha, Balresh, thank you. Daily active addresses definitely moving down rapidly ever since late March. Yeah, we've seen the amount of unique addresses interacting on the network really declining over time, while circulation is at least a little more flat over the past month. MVRV, one of our favorite metrics. The short-term end, looking at addresses that have interacted over the past 30 days, they are up about 4.5% on their money, while 365-day addresses are up 34% on their money. Ideally, we want to see both of these lines below zero, but of course, that's not going to be the case when we've seen Bitcoin climb the way it has over the past 8 months or so. At some point, I will warn, these lines will come down, and that's because prices are correcting, and that would be a clear buy signal to start adding onto your portfolios. At the very least, I would, if you're playing the odds and probabilities, I would be most confident adding onto your portfolios when at least this orange line is below 0%, which it's not right now. Funding rate, already mentioned, it's quite flat at the moment. Whale transactions, quite dead at the moment. Not nothing, but certainly still on the decline. In terms of overall, like new addresses being created, we do see a little bit of new 1K to 10K BTC wallets being made over the past 10 days, but the 10K to 100K has actually dropped down. There are 6 less addresses going from 106 to 100, and only 3 100K or more wallets out there still. In terms of profit taking, really not too much. We do see a few concerning spikes up here. We'd rather see these lines stay very low. So keep that in mind, as it is hinting at a bit of a top. Mean dollar invested age has been flat. This is good. We want to see the line continuing to descend, or at least stay low. And ever since that big Mt. Gox move from the trustee about 10 days ago, the line has been staying low, indicating dormant wallets are moving their coins around at a pretty healthy rate. We don't want to see the line start to ascend like this again. And so far, we're okay. Network realized profit and loss, not much in either direction. This is a bit of a concern. We'd rather see a little bit of, realized losses creeping in, or at least some movement going on like we saw here. But this was, of course, related to Mt. Gox once again, and it doesn't look like there's much realized profit or loss in either direction, as people are pretty stagnant with their holdings, as we saw with daily active addresses and circulation. Social volume continues to go down. I find this so fascinating because, especially with price moving up since the end of April or beginning of May, like so, you would think that social volume, is also going to go up, but it's actually moving down like this. So there's less and less interest, despite, over the past, since the beginning of May at least, Bitcoin going up 21%. So I actually think that's a positive sign. It means that the crowd is kind of being lulled to sleep through all of this volatility, despite the fact that, Bitcoin is quietly ascending and getting very close to its new all-time high. That means it can continue to ascend with very little resistance from the crowd. And then its RSI is creeping up a little bit high. Average would be 50 for this metric right here. So anything above means you're at a little bit more of a risk. Anything below means you're at a little bit more of an opportunity to buy. So we're a little closer to a top-ish type of signal for one of the top TA indicators out there, as opposed to a bottom signal. Okay, so we don't, my understanding is we don't have any questions related to any assets. I'll look at one on my own really quick, and then we'll wrap this call up for this week. I'm hoping we have our good friend Maxim back on the call with us next week, and we will take some more questions then. But why don't we take a look, not Ethereum. Let's look at, well, Toncoin we don't have. Yeah, we've got a little bit we can look at. So let's take a look at Toncoin, which is, of course, one of the darlings of 2024 thus far. So looking at trading volume, yeah, not much going on there. It has seen a bit of a resurgence in June, but not to the degree we saw in May or April, when it was really seeing those big spikes. But you might argue this is yet another spike that's comparable to the last two. It's just not getting as much attention. I think this is actually a pretty decent sign, the fact that it's able to move up without as much volume support. And yeah, when we look at the utility of the network, we're starting to see some ascension in terms of daily active address movement, not nearly as much as the last two phases. Circulation, not really much at all. MVRV, assuming it's accurate, I think it should be accurate. The 365 day is just off the charts, which is unsurprising. The average returns of addresses that have been interacting on the network in the past year is plus 300%, which is just enormous. 30-day returns are at about plus 20%. So yeah, this would be a warning sign for Toncoin traders that we may be seeing a severe correction sometime soon. In terms of whale activity, yeah, they started accumulating pretty aggressively at the beginning of this week, and this undoubtedly had a lot to do with this rise to a new all-time high and us getting above $7.50. Looking at the whale tiers, so with it being at about 750, we'll look at whales right around 100K or more. If this is correct, then okay, we'll just do it this way then. 100K or anything above that. They've been declining pretty rapidly. Part of this is just due to the newness of the coin and the fact that it's distributing to smaller addresses over time. But it started to stabilize here in mid-May, which I think is a good sign. I think this is kind of the end of the new coin redistribution phase, and now we're getting a true look at how, these whales are behaving. And it looks like they're staying pretty flat. I'm not seeing any more dumping like we were. Therefore, this would be a sign of confidence from the whales. And then why don't we look at the new metrics, assuming it's available? Yeah, so we've got whale USD on non-exchanges and then overall whale USD holdings. For some reason, there's a cutoff here on May 30th, but if we look at the overall whale holdings, it looks like they're holding about 1.25 million compared to 13.24 million way back when. Again, I think this is a bit distorted just because it's such a new coin, though. There's natural redistribution that's going on. So maybe we'll look back more in depth in a month or two to see how they're behaving now that they've kind of flattened out here for a couple months. And anything else I could quickly check on for Toncoin? Mean dollar invested age is looking quite good. So dormant coins or dormant wallets, I should say, are continuing to move around their coins pretty rapidly. And I like the look of that a lot. As long as it's continuing to move down instead of up, this would justify coins or prices continuing to move in the right direction if you're bullish. Social dominance is spiking a little bit. That's a bit of a warning sign. You don't want it to be talked about too much. Otherwise, it's a sign that the mainstream crowd is FOMOing in and could cause tops. It's not like a severe social dominance spike yet, but look for something like this, like on May 16th, as a sign that we may retrace once again. And RSI, last but not least, is at 72, which is high, but not enormously high like we saw when it was over 80 on April 10th or over 87 back on March 12th. The amount of holders continue to move up as well. It would actually be great if we saw it start to flatten out a bit, indicating that there's some tiny wallets that are taking profit and jumping ship too early. But anyways, that's a quick update on Toncoin. Thank you all who watched live, and thank you all who are watching this on replay. Your support is amazing. As always, continue to like and share. I know it's redundant to ask, but it makes a huge difference in the YouTube algorithms picking up our videos and spreading the word about them more and more. So with that said, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you to Balresh for running the stream, and we will talk to you next time. Take care, folks.